And that's 100% true, isn't it? Another quote that Thomas Edison apparently made was, of the 200 light bulbs that didn't work, every failure told me something that I was able to incorporate into the next attempt. And it's true of any success, isn't it? It's true of, look at J.K. Rowling story with regard to the Harry Potter novels. What was it? 300 publishers turned her down. 300 publishers said, nope, not interested. Until one said that they were interested. And J.K. Rowling went on to make £1 billion from the one interest that came up out of 300. If she was the kind of person that would give up, if she was the kind of person that would not repeat the process of sending it out and being willing to do what? Willing to have bad information, bad news delivered onto her doorstep the very next day from another publisher saying, thanks for the opportunity, but it's not for me, thank you very much. If she were not that kind of person that would then take that personally, she might just have said, oh, well, chuck it in the bin. Chuck it in the bin, and that would have been the end of it. But she didn't take it personally. She just moved on and sent it out again. She moved on and sent it on again, and so on and so on and so on. And it just keeps process. You just keep the process going with everybody that you're looking at. Has never got there without hard graft. Whether it's a sports personality, they haven't got there without some serious hard graft. And there's been many times, no doubt, that you see this superstar and you think, they've got it all. They've probably been so close to giving up at one stage or another through their careers or through their life, maybe when they were a youngster. I mean, so close to giving up. And something somewhere says, no, just, you know what, just keep trying. Just keep trying. And things will fall into place. You will find a way. The more times you look, the more times you try, the more times you do the sequences, the more times you do the structures, the more time you spend on your charts, the more successful you will become. The more successful you'll become if you're going in the right direction. You know, if you're looking at the right things, like Egbert's looking at the right things, if you're looking at value, you're looking at the right things. What's driving today's market? When we talked about this morning, for example, what I hope is that you don't just listen to me talking about this process, this idea here. You look for it. You look for it in all sorts of places. Anywhere you can see a price that's opened, a price that's went to a high and then a low and then a close. And you've thought about what that looks like, how it feels. If I look through my charts, I can start seeing some of those patterns. Hopefully, you can see some of those patterns as well. Take a look at this S&P. This is a daily chart of the S&P. Who sees those patterns on this chart? Who sees those patterns? You might be looking for this perfect spinning candle here. You might be looking for this perfect spinning candle here. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, I don't see any of those. You're not looking hard enough. When you look at this chart, you should be seeing loads of opportunities to understand the concept of some sort of a equilibrium pricing or POC pricing. You should be seeing them. They should be everywhere for you to recognize. If you don't see them, let me point one or two out for you. Okay, I can see potentially an opening price here. I can see a high here. I can see a low here. And now obviously that means that there must be a closing price there. There must be a closing price there if the price goes through that level. So now that I've got that closing price, I can now draw that level in my charts as a possible demand area. And all of a sudden, by looking at my chart for a few seconds, I'm able to recognize the possibility of real money demand at this price and again at this price. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? So I've been able to draw that little figure 4. That little figure 4 right there. Does anybody see any other figure 4s? Well, I can highlight as many as you wish. I can see a potential opening price in here. I can see a potential opening price here. I can see a low price here. I can see a high price here. But what doesn't happen to that one? Well, obviously, I can see a high price. It's gone in the opposite direction to this 4. Obviously, it's now a J shape. And if I now draw that J shape, and I draw that across, this could be an important price level. Now, it turns out that the price bounced right off that price level, absolutely. It doesn't matter which direction it goes first and finishes and so on. I mean, you just know about the fact that this price level may well be important in the future going forward. I can see a new opening price, a new closing price. So let me just show you. I could see potentially a new opening price here, a new closing, a new low price here, a new high. So we're getting one of those J shapes again, and it's completing that whole process. So I can look at that in terms of symmetry, and I can start thinking to myself, well, that price there should be quite important. It's just a change of behavior. But you see how many times these things appear? They're all over the place. I can see a opening price. I can see a low price. I could see potentially a closing price. And so long as that creates a completed type profile, and it's a little bit asymmetrical, isn't it? It's not quite symmetrical. But I would expect to see a closing price, and therefore I'd expect to see demand here. In other words, a half-back trade. A half-back trade opportunity. These areas I could be starting to look for in these types of areas. It doesn't matter how often I do this exercise. For example, here, I can see an opening price here. I can see a low price here. I can see a very, very symmetrical type profile there. And obviously what happens, you can see that we then get this move lower here, and we start recognizing some of these turns. We start recognizing some of these supply lines, and I can draw that line in the middle of that area. To get it symmetrical, remember, we're trying to draw it in the middle, which makes it a half-back trade. Still has to make sense. An opening price, a possible low, a possible high, which means that that is very symmetrical for a buy trade opportunity, perhaps down at this price. It doesn't matter where we go in the charts. It doesn't matter what time frame we use. I can go from the 1 minute to the 5 minute chart, and I can look for similar type ideas, can't I? I can look for similar ideas. Now, I don't see any on the 5 minute chart. So we could go down into a 1 minute chart, see if we can spot any obvious ones. Well, there's an obvious one there. There's a new high there. There's a new low there. And I've got the perfect little 4 right there. So I can now recognize quite clearly the opportunity to maybe work some sell orders against that 4 opportunity just there. It should be pretty obvious, shouldn't it? The 4s, these types of little skewed 4s, should be pretty obvious about where some of this trade is developing. So we're looking for those types of situations. Now, did we see any possible J shapes? Well, yes, we could have drawn a J into a new low. We could have drawn that J there. So there's the price into the new low. There's the open. So we could draw that there. And obviously, when that price now takes out that level, you're now looking at that shape there. There's the J shape. Based on the J shape, this price level here should be an opportunity potentially to buy into some bottom edges. We can see possible bottom edge buying opportunities into a low price. So you can see what happens. That it doesn't. You might say you're cherry picking a bottom edge. No, we're not. if I was to do the same exercise into a new low, well, there's the new low. It came from here. So for that to be a J shape, the price would have had to have gone through that by this amount for that to be the same thing. That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing at all. This is the same thing right here, isn't it? This is the same thing here. This is the right thing that you're looking for. So you can see that I'm not cherry picking at all. I'm actually doing it the way you should be doing it. What about into this high price here? Does anybody have an opportunity to do a 4 on this one? Yes, we do. There it is. There's the high price. There's the breakout level there. You can see the price goes through the symmetrical process here. So this becomes a possible tradable level right there, doesn't it? It simply becomes a tradable level. Now you can see it doesn't get into that price. It's got to make a higher high, remember. It's got to make a lower low. If it makes a higher high, we could be in shape. So here's a higher high here. Here's a really good example of one right here, isn't it? So we can see that makes a lower low. That makes a higher high. That price there draws straight through that level, and therefore there should be technical opportunities to buy potentially in this area, right? That's a perfect J bottom edge. 4 at the top, J at the bottom. 4 at the top, J at the bottom. This one's not brilliant because it's not particularly symmetrical, but if I started here and went up to here, and then went back down to here, of course, that's a 4 at the top, isn't it? That's a 4 at the top, and you'd be looking at that saying, okay, well, there's a possible opportunity to do some business. Does everybody see it? 4's at the top, J's at the bottom. Possible J at the bottom? Absolutely, yeah. So you could start from here, but you can see obviously that doesn't do much, but you could start from here. It doesn't quite take out the bottom edge. I'm a little bit disappointed in that, but that's a very strong buy-side response. Is that a reasonable J to look at for a possible demand area? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Miguel, are you talking about the dodgy formation? Absolutely. Every time you can draw a J or a 4 shape, you're talking about drawing a doji shape. Aren't we? Aren't we talking about drawing a doji shape if we get a J form or a 4 forming at the bottom edge or the top edge? If we get a 4 at a top edge, are we talking about a doji shape? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Why? Because it's balancing out the profile, isn't it? Because if we go through how the profile forms, it's got to start by that J shape, which is the bottom triangle. It then goes for a measure telling you that there was active buyers in that area, so there should be a pullback to the halfback, which is effectively the bottom part of the J shape, right? So all of a sudden, we're on a 1-minute chart on the S&P, and we're seeing all of these opportunities. At a top, it should be a 4. At a bottom, it should be some sort of J shape, shouldn't it? You may say, well, what happened to this J shape here? I've got a possible trade here to here, and then I've got a nice move above here. So surely there should be an opportunity to buy somewhere in this area here. Yeah, there should. There should be an opportunity to buy somewhere in that area. I'm not drawing everything on it because obviously some of them don't ever get tested. You can see that there was a possible 4 shape here because it went up. You can see it went up. It then came straight back down. It went through that. It went through that price there quite clearly, quite considerably through that price. And obviously that then sets up that symmetrical opportunity there. It's an area that you're still going to be aware of. And guess what happened? When the price hits that area, it does come off it a little bit, doesn't it? It does come off it a little bit. So this is an easy way to start recognizing some basic supply-demand dynamics. Where somebody sold before, if the supply is the same, somebody should sell again. Where somebody bought before, if the demand is the same, they should buy again. Where somebody has bought where previously they sold tells you that the dynamics have changed. 100% dynamics have changed, haven't they? So it doesn't matter where I go with this idea, it doesn't matter where I go with this chart, the dynamic has changed. So you can see, for example, here you say, well, why is that not one? You've got price making a high. Yeah, but it never ever comes out through the bottom edge. It doesn't change anything. This doesn't give us anything, does it? It doesn't change it into a top edge 4. There is no top edge 4. So you say, well, what about this leg higher here? This is, no, there's no top edge 4 again, is there? Still no top edge 4. What about this little phase here? I can see a tiny little phase there. What about that one? Nope, still not a top edge 4. What happens when it breaks? Well, yeah, then a top edge 4 starts to form just there. Now, obviously, you're going to be looking at that saying, okay, well, the pattern should be something like this. So I'd expect the price to reach down into this area here. And if that happens, I'd expect to see a pullback to this area here. And obviously, it does happen. You can see the price does come down very, very close here, and it does pull back almost perfectly to that price point. Symmetrical, little areas that you start to recognize for opportunities to trade these 4s and J's against. It's the easiest way to develop out these ideas, isn't it? That symmetry, that equilibrium is the whole concept of profile in the first instance. This is this idea here. So when I look at that idea, is that exactly what I'm drawing on the charts for you guys? The prices are here. The price trades up to this point here. The price does not find demand at that price, where it found demand previously. It then trades clean through that demand, not just by a tiny amount, but by a full measure, and it trades back to the change of behavior level for an opportunity to maybe get some business done. Now that business can happen anywhere in this area, of course. But the point is you're starting to recognize the change of power. You're starting to recognize that technical sentiment shift. You're starting to recognize a technical sentiment shift on the charts, aren't you? You're starting to think about the opportunity potentially to get a bit of business done in these areas. Now, it's like I said to Egbert, you don't know if you're going to get any business done. You don't know if you're going to see the trade. You don't know what value is doing. But the point is you've just got to still see it. You've still got to have the ability to recognize it when it happens. You're not victim of it anymore. You're simply recognizing when it's setting up and you're saying, right, I'm going to be ready for it. So have a little look. Have a little look and see if you can see it happening. Start setting up on your charts. Think about it because it should be pretty obvious. It should be pretty obvious, right? Cash open in just 5 minutes, guys. So we'll have a look and see if there's any cats this morning. Big cat winner yesterday, of course, 40+%. And very nice indeed from the Bold Raja yesterday. 2 trades of 8%. Cats 40 something percent, yeah, 40%.